For this video, we will be still talking about 7.2, which is solving systems by substitution. However, this is day 2 of the notes. So if you missed day 1, you definitely need to stop this video, go back to the day 1 video, make sure you get that all copied down. You're all good to go there. Then you can go ahead and come back to your day 2 video. So picking up right where we left off, we have all of our steps that we need to follow. So step 1, again, we need to isolate a variable. So when I look at number 7, I see that I do not have anything isolated. However, what I do notice is that this x has a coefficient of 1. If you remember that hint, a coefficient of 1 makes our life a lot simpler. So I'm going to go ahead and work to get this x by itself. I'm going to subtract 4y from both sides. When I do that, I have x equals negative 4y minus 4. Now that I have an isolated variable, remember we draw a box around everything after the equal sign. Since we used the bottom equation, we need to plug this in for x in the top equation. And again, you're plugging it in for x because that's what the box is equal to. So then I'm going to go ahead and start copying down. I have 3, and then in parentheses, negative 4y minus 4. And then finish copying down the rest of that, plus 5y equals 2. And then go ahead and start solving here. So I'm going to distribute, and I have negative 12y minus 12 plus 5y equals 2. Then I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. When I do that, I have negative 7y minus 12 equals 2. Add 12 to both sides. And I have negative 7y equals 14. Divide both sides by negative 7. Y is equal to negative 2. And then if you remember, we always plug it back into our box to figure out what the other missing variable is. So then, let's see, I'm running out of room here. I'm going to go over here. I have x equals negative 4 times whatever y is would be negative 2, and then minus 4. So then that would give me x equals 8 minus 4. Answer for x would be 4. Then again, I have to write that as an ordered pair when I'm done. So 4 comma negative 2. Make sure you still put x first in the ordered pair, even though you solve for y first. The order in which you solve for the variables does not matter. You have to make sure your final answer is written as x comma y. That's a really common mistake that kids make. Okay, looking at number 8, again, looking for an isolated variable. We don't have that in this case, but again, I do see that this x has a coefficient of 1, so I'm going to get that x by itself. So I'm going to add 2y to both sides, and I get x equals 2y plus 6. Go ahead and draw my box. So then I'm going to plug that in for x in the top equation. So then we have 4. And then times 2y plus 6, and then minus 2y equals 12. And then start solving here. Again, distribute. So I have 8y plus 24 minus 2y equals 12. Combine our like terms. So we have 6y plus 24 equals 12. Then I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides. And we have 6y is equal to negative 12. Divide both sides by 6, and y is equal to negative 2. And then again, draw our line up here, plugging it back into my box. So I have x equals 2 times whatever y is, which would be negative 2, and then plus 6. So then x equals 2 times negative 2 would be a negative 4 plus 6. X would be positive 2. So then our final answer would be 2 comma negative 2, again in parentheses with a comma in between them. Okay, next we have 9, 10, and 11. So looking at number 9, again, isolated variable, I see this y is by itself, so I'm going to go ahead and draw my box around everything after the equal sign, and we're plugging it in for y. So I have 4x minus 9. And then minus 4x equals 6. Then if I go to combine my like terms, I have 4x minus 4x. If you combine those together, they actually cancel out because they make 0x. So then really all you have left is negative 9 equals 6. Since all of your variables canceled out, you have to pay attention to, is this a true statement or a false statement? Does negative 9 equal 6? In this case, no, it is false. They do not equal each other. This would be an example of no solution. And if you think, if I asked you to graph these would end up being parallel lines. If you think about it, on this equation right here, if you added 4x to both sides, you would end up with 4x for your slope, where you'd end up with 4 for your slope for both of those, and then -9 for one intercept, 6 for another y-intercept. So that would actually make those lines parallel. Okay, looking at number 10, x is isolated, so I'm going to go ahead and draw my box. This is going to get plugged in for x. So we have 6y plus 2, and then putting in or substituting in -3y plus 4. And then we have equals 8. So then if I distribute here, I get 6y minus 6y plus 8 equals 8. When I combine my like terms, those cancel out. 6y minus 6y is just 0. So then we have 8 equals 8. This is a true statement, so I could put a little check mark here if I wanted to. This answer would be infinitely many solutions. And then again, if I was to ask you to graph these, you would realize that they have the exact same slope and the same y-intercept. So these two lines would actually coincide or be directly on top of each other. So that would be another way that you would know it was infinitely many solutions. And then the last one here, we have y isolated by itself already. So I can go ahead and draw my box, draw my arrow towards the y, and I'm plugging in 3x minus 11. And then we have minus 3x on the outside equals -13. Nothing to distribute, so I can go ahead and combine my like terms here. 3x minus 3x, again, would cancel out. So you have -11 is equal to -13. This would be a false statement. So I'm going to put a slash through my equal sign. They are not equal to each other. So this would be another example of no solution. Okay, we have 2 word problems on the next page, and that will be it for your day 2 notes. So let's go ahead and flip over. Alrighty, so for word problems, you'll notice that we have some directions here. The first thing this says is define your variables. So since it's plural variables, we know that we have to have a system of equations. That means we have to have 2 variables here. So you pay $22 to rent 6 video games. The store charges $4 for new games and $2 for older games. There's our 2 things that we're talking about. So X is going to be my new games, and y is going to be my old games. Now, something else that we have to pay attention to, setting up our equations can be a little tricky. So the first thing I like to do is circle all of my numbers. So you paid $22 to rent 6 video games. The store charges $4 for new games and $2 for older games. How many new games did you rent? So one thing I noticed right off of the bat is you pay $20 and it talks about money for some of the numbers. So I'm going to put all of the dollar amounts together in one equation. So it's $4 for a new game, so that would be 4 times x, and or plus $2 for old games, so plus 2y. You paid $22 total. That's our first equation. Now the second equation is a little bit trickier. We still have to use the 6, but there's no other numbers that we have left to use. But we know that we rented 6 video games total. So I know that I could put equals 6. Now, in order to know how much money you spent, you have to have bought a certain number of new games and a certain number of old games. We just don't know how many, but we know that if you added up the new games you bought plus the old games you bought, that would equal 6. So that's actually how we're going to write our other equation. Now we have to actually start solving this by substitution. So we need to isolate one of our variables. So I'm going to go ahead and isolate y here. So, and actually you could have isolated x or y. It really didn't matter, but we're all pretty used to getting y by itself for slope-intercept form. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep that process up. So we have y equals -x plus 6. And then I can go ahead and draw my box. Since I used the bottom one, I'm going to have to plug it into the top one. So then I have 4x plus 2 times whatever I'm plugging in for y, so -x plus 6, and then equals 22. Then I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So then I would get 4x minus 2x plus 12 equals 22. Combine my like terms, I get 2x plus 12 equals 22. Subtract 12 from both sides, and we get 2x is equal to 10. Divide both sides by 2, and x is equal to 5. Now, something that I would like to bring to your attention, your question only asks, how many new games did you rent? New games is x. So really, once you find x, you're actually done with this problem. So if you pay attention to your word problems on your homework, you may catch that some of them you don't have to actually find the other variable. So we can stop right here and say, we rented, well, whoops, don't want my highlighter back though. We rented 5 new games. That would be your answer for number 12. Now, if it said how many of each game did you rent, you would have to actually find y as well. So let's go ahead and move on down here to number 13. So we have in a talent show of singing and comedy acts. Singing acts are 5 minutes long and comedy acts are 3 minutes long. Right off the bat, I know the two things I'm talking about. So X is going to be singing acts. My Y is going to be my comedy acts. And then I have to set up my two equations. So again, I like to circle all my numbers and figure out what labels I have going on. So 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 12 acts, and 50 minutes. I do see that I have 3 different minute numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of those together. So 5 minutes for a singing act would be 5 times X. And then 3 minutes for a comedy act would be plus 3Y. The entire show was 50 minutes. So that's my first equation. Then we have the show has 12 acts, but we don't know how many of each act there was. This is going to be similar to number 12, where it's just X plus Y equals 12. You have so many singing acts and so many comedy acts, and they have to add up to 12 acts total. So then again, I'm going to go ahead and isolate Y in this case. So I have Y equals negative X plus 12. And notice we're choosing the bottom equation because both of those have a coefficient of 1. They would be the easiest ones to isolate. And again, just a reminder, you could have gone for X or Y in this case. I like to choose Y just because we're also used to using slope-intercept form. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in for Y. So then I would have 5X plus 3, and then times negative X plus 12, and then equals 50. Then I'm going to go ahead and start solving. So I'm going to distribute. We have 5X minus 3X plus 36 equals 50. Combine my like terms. I have 2X plus 36 equals 50. Subtract 36 from both sides. We get 2X equals 14. Divide both sides by 2. And we get X equals 7. Now you will notice the question does say how many singing acts and how many comedy acts are in the show. So we do have to know both numbers. So once I know that X equals 7, I'm going to plug it into my box right here. So I have Y equals negative, and then plugging in the 7 here, plus 12. So then really that's just saying it's negative 7 plus 12. We just have to be careful of that negative. So Y is actually equal to 5. Now, you're not going to write your answer as an ordered pair in this case because you actually have to write this in words. So we're going to say there were 7 singing acts and 5 comedy acts. And that is it for these notes.